One time, a team started 5 centers in a game. LeBron James trash talked to President Donald Trump, and even a time when fans were licking each other. All this happened during the craziest 3 months of basketball ever. After hearing Taylor Rooks say the bubble was the best NBA era, I gotta agree with her. If Taylor said it, it's 100% facts, don't want to question it. Doesn't matter what she says, she's always right. But it got me thinking, what are the best, most forgotten about moments that happened in the NBA bubble? It started when the NBA flipped Disney World upside down and literally turned it into a My Park neighborhood. You had players playing cards, video games, even players fishing. Heck, NBA players were also getting more stoned than a witch in Salem. Despite all this, players were still frustrated. Ties posted a pic of a dead cockroach. Players complained about constantly being tested and even tracked at all times with a high-tech bracelet. It got so bad that the NBA even had to shut off a player's live stream because he was exposing the conditions inside the bubble. J.R. Smith took to IG Live where he started complaining about the food they were receiving, and he wasn't the only one that was complaining about it. In fact, the food was so bad that despite knowing the dangers if caught, Holmes still decided to DoorDash himself a meal. Of course, the NBA found out and then forced him to quarantine for 8 days, all for some double chunk chocolate cookies. I mean, how bad was the food in there? Who'd they have cooking? Aisha Curry? The NBA knew they had to do something about this, and quickly. So they replaced the cook who was white with someone that had a little bit more melanin. They hired Chef Lex, who had experience cooking for people like Oprah, Kelly Rowland, the Blazers, and even P. Diddy's pet Meek Mill. That meant breakfast, lunch, and dinner was all on her shoulders now. And she delivered over 4,000 meals a week, all from her. Which is great and all, but my high school lunch lady used to cook 10,000 meals a week. Life inside the bubble seemed amazing. You had Taco Fall learning how to swim, which doesn't really make sense, cause can't bros just stand up in the deep end? Jimmy Butler was slinging more coffee than LeBron did with shoes in the hood. They had game nights, DJ parties, they even had their own barbershop. However, NBA players were still unhappy, comparing Disney World to literal prison. LeBron went as far as saying he felt oppressed cause the room he had, but in reality, the king literally lived like a king in there. There are only 2 presidential suites at Disney Resort, and out of everyone else that was there, one went to LeBron. And he says he was oppressed? If that's what being oppressed means, then I wish I was oppressed too. Oppress me next. But not everyone was having this bad of a time, as the bubble accidentally created some of the most diabolical fan moments ever. Playoffs are the biggest event for the NBA, as only a few teams get the honor of playing. And with these highly anticipated games, millions across the world tune in to watch. With all this popularity, the playoffs generate millions of dollars for the NBA. However, due to the shutdowns, the NBA was now at risk of losing out on all this money, especially because no tickets were being sold. So they quickly thought of a solution and decided to sell virtual tickets. Fans were now allowed to buy tickets and act like they were actually at the game simply by connecting their webcams from the comfort of their homes. This actually turned out to be a huge mistake, and the NBA effed around and found out. Fans were going crazy. You had someone post a picture of Chris Benoit, and even one that was dressed like he was going to a white people's family reunion. But it gets worse, cause a fan, inspired by Drake, literally whooped it out and started stroking his thing. Whoa, Cotton 4K, why you still here? Nah, that's crazy. None of my business, though, cause we all have our low points in life, but you gotta be astronomically down bad to watch Drake Part 2 on a YouTube video. Fans weren't done with their tomfoolery just yet, though, as this one fan whose balls were feeling extra heavy that day decided to take it even further. He started licking a fan's bald head, even tried to kiss another one, and then started giving out wet willies. You wanna know the craziest thing about all this, though? He's not even the only predator in the clip, as you probably failed to notice EDP. Some celebrities showed up to watch the games as well. You had Obama, who's literally giving a goddamn speech during the game. Even Lil Wayne taking a first-class flight to the clouds. Also, Mr. Poopy Pants, who fell asleep during a game. He's probably listening to some J. Cole music. With the fans enjoying themselves, playoffs underway, everything seemed fine on the surface. That was until players were caught doing something sneaky inside the bubble, something that had the potential to shut the whole thing down. Despite the NBA suspending players and even kicking some out for this, players still continued their dirty little secret. They had gotten busted for busting. It all started with this man, Daniel House, who had an unusual end to his season. The Rockets were set to play the Lakers in the playoffs, when after an investigation by the NBA, House was mysteriously suspended right before the game. It was discovered that House had snuck a girl into his room and spent several hours with her. This resulted in him not only getting kicked out of the bubble, but also costing the Rockets in the playoffs. That's a detrimental level of horny right there. Like, come on, bro. You think Harden gave up being away from Lil Baby for this? But he wasn't the only one, as even Dwight Howard got caught with the girl. which is weird because Dwight doesn't even like girls. I mean, these brothers were starving in there, so it continued. As Lou Williams took it a step further by lying and saying he had a family emergency. This allowed him to leave the bubble for a few days. Now, if he's out of the bubble, how the heck does he get caught? Well, this is where things get interesting. Lou Will had the innocent excuse of saying he had a family funeral, when in reality, he pulled up to Magic City, aka the Costco of bops. My man was having the time of his life, not a worry in his mind, and why would he worry? He hadn't gotten caught, no reports, no snitches, life was good. He thought he had outsmarted everyone and gotten away with eating ass. Until Jack Harlow did this. Jack Harlow was also at Magic City and he was also having a great time, so much so that he decided to post a picture. Well, that picture also had Lou Will in it. The NBA handed that man a 2-game suspension. Out of all the ways he could have gotten caught, the one that did him in was a Jack Harlow thirst trap. What a shame. The players had a huge problem on their hands now. They were getting less play than even a KSI album. If they snuck a girl in, they'd get caught. If they left the bubble, also caught. There was nothing they could do until this genius stepped in. Jimmy Butler had found a third option that was in front of them the entire time. The NBA's fleshlight, Rachel Nichols. And Jimmy went to work. In fact, he was reported for a nose complaint. They said it was because he was dribbling a basketball inside the bubble. No, that man was really just bouncing Rachel's ass cheeks around. The bubble had more testosterone than the state of Florida does during spring break, and this led to some heated moments, like when Westbrook was caught talking smack to a player's family, including the kids. Oh, but if I do this, it's a case though. The NBA allowed players to invite their barbers to the bubble. The barber that Rondo invited also happened to be his brother. This is important because during a game between the Rockets and the Lakers, you can see Westbrook start yelling at someone in the crowd. Who was that person? You guessed it, Rondo's brother. He was calling Westbrook trash and even waving bye to him as he got eliminated from the playoffs. Now, I know Westbrook hates being called trash and Westbrook, but what's he gonna do when this catches on? Forget Westbrook. Are we even sure Rondo's brother even likes Rondo? Golly, this man was committing war crimes on Rondo. Bro, please hide that. Wear a do-rag or something. You even had Mr. Twitter Fingers involved in some trash talk. After a hater was calling KD names on Twitter, KD ended up liking his girl's photos and even started following her. Bro's a certified bop. There was even a fight between Aaron Gordon and BBL Lowry. After a hard, borderline dirty foul, Aaron Gordon started trash-talking Lowry, who simply responded by giving him his room number. Personally, I definitely would have gone to his room. Lowry's cakes are insane, and not everyone was getting a turn with Rachel Nichols, so you gotta get what you can take. The next beef had players blowing kisses, ejections, and even team Twitter accounts trash-talking. It was between Jimmy Butler and TJ Warren. Not exactly Braun versus Lance, but hey, I'll take it. Jimmy was driving to the hoop when Warren committed a harmless foul. However, it sent Butler into absolute mayhem. He started screaming at TJ, calling him trash, and TJ responded back by saying he'd kick his ass. Teammates, refs, and coaches quickly split the two up, trying to calm them down, and everyone thought it was over. But just a few moments later, they went at it again. Jimmy Butler put his shoulder straight into Warren's chest, who responded by clapping at him, which I guess reminded Jimmy of Rachel Nichols, so he started blowing kisses. Both had to be ejected. This beef was far from over though. Out of nowhere, Warren started playing like Harden does when little babies in the front row, putting up generational performances. And Jimmy got word of this, and so did both team Twitter accounts, who started chirping each other too. And after over 8 months had passed, Jimmy would finally get his shot in the playoffs, where not only did he lock him up, he also taunted him mid-game. And ever since then, not once has TJ yapped. Jimmy really out here working miracles. It still doesn't top the most heated moment from the bubble, which involved racism that would have even had the founding fathers of America cracking smiles. Heading into the playoffs, the Clippers looked like a force. Everything was clicking, players were healthy, all was good. Even Vegas had them as heavy favorites. So, heading into the series against the Mavs, of course everyone had them winning, and they were doing just that. But that all changed after this moment. After scoring, Montrezl called Luka a bit white boy, and this sparked outrage everywhere, especially because at that time, the NBA was speaking out against racial inequality. Players had Black Lives Matter written on their jerseys, the NBA even had it written on courts. Montrezl was under a lot of heat and criticism, so he ended up apologizing. Everyone would forgive him and move on, except for Luka, who has a history of circling the block on his ops. One time, he got crossed up by the Nets, and they had the audacity of making the mistake of trash-talking him. A few plays later, he pulled up from half-court and ripped one. Messing with Luka is a disaster waiting to happen, and he proved it again that day against Montrez. As heavy underdogs and outmatched, Luka not only carried the Mavs to a win against the Clippers, he also hit this game winner. And the best thing about it, it was on the Black Lives Matter logo.
Bang! Bang! It's good!
As great and amazing as that was, nobody paid a bigger price than the Boston Celtics. Typically, heated moments happen between players and refs or opponents, but in this case, it was between two teammates. The Celtics and Heat faced off in the playoffs, and everyone had the Celtics winning. Wrong. The Celtics found themselves down 0-2 and time was running out on them. So of course you'd expect them to rally together and play harder in the next game. Except they did the exact opposite. After game 2, reports started flying around about how there was screaming, yelling, and cussing being heard from their locker room. It gets worse, cause there were more reports saying they could hear things being thrown in the locker room. In fact, during this post-game interview with Jason Tatum, if you listen closely, people were saying that you could hear the things being thrown and smashed around.
Let's see.
Take it one game at a time. We gotta get a win first. Build some momentum like that. We keep win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose two. Like to get some momentum like that.
In reality, though, that was probably just Jimmy Butler clapping Rachel Nichols' cheeks. Soon, more details emerged, saying Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart had to be separated during a heated argument. Everything was spiraling down, with teammates turning on each other, the team was imploding, and series likely over. There were still some who had hope and thought it would light a fire under them, but unfortunately the damage was already done. This heated moment between two teammates likely ended up costing them the series. The bubble also had some generational performances, from Dame dropping 61, Harden with a 50-point triple-double, and in just one series, we had 4 50 bombs from Mitchell and Murray. It was even happening from the most unexpected players, as TJ Warren turned in a prime Michael Jordan. But no one could figure out why this was happening. Some thought it was because there were fewer distractions. Since there were no crowds at the game, players were free of noise and cheering. Others said it was because there were more fouls being called in the bubble. Personally, I disagree with both. I think the real reason was because the winners got a prize after the game. Rachel Nichols. I'm talking the entire roster, the coaches, equipment manager, even the water boys got it in where the sun don't shine. The thing about this is though, it was on the verge of never even happening. All because players were threatening to walk away from the bubble. In fact, some even did, which led to playoff games being cancelled. All this was happening because of the innocent black lives being lost across America. The players had enough. In a scheduled game between the Bucks and the Magic, both teams decided to forfeit. The rest of the teams also followed their footsteps, and a boycott was underway. The NBA quickly held an emergency meeting. They knew how disastrous this was for them and how much money they could potentially lose. So this meeting meant everything for them. Just as everything was about to be okay and the games were about to be back on, some players decided to leave during the middle of the meeting, LeBron being one. In fact, not only did he leave, my man rushed to his room and hopped straight on Madden. He could care less. So a second meeting had to be held, which also seemed like a failure. Until players received a phone call. And it was from the most unexpected person you'd think of, Barack Obama. He was able to talk to the players and convince them to finally stay. At least that's what the players say, but come on, we all know what the real reason they stayed for was. And thank God for it, or else we would have missed out on some of the greatest moments ever. Like when AD dropped 42 points on the Suns, then immediately hopped on GTA and started cooking on there too. Some of us are just naturally gifted, myself included. Even Jimmy had a masterpiece in the finals against the Lakers, and I finally get now why he was so tired. Late night load management with Rachel Nichols. Who wasn't the only one getting facialed in the bubble, as Elon Musk caught a body on thesis statement. That's just not a poster, that's attempted murder right there.